Rouladen is a word for a flat piece of meat that is rolled around a filling. It's probably from France originally, or from the Alsace region, because the name of rouladen is obviously based on the French. We would just call it Fleischrolle. Rouladen is a popular dish in Germany. Everybody has their own variations. Some people put fresh onion, some people leave it out. There is a debate whether or not a pickle in rouladen is traditional. So I'm just making my version that I like and that my family likes. Today we're making rouladen, which is thin slices of beef that are stuffed with bacon. It's not even a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch maybe. If you can't find rouladen made those thin slices, you can pick up a rump roast of a fairly large one. You go to the butcher's counter, then tell them please cut it into 1/8 of an inch, 6 slices. If it's too thick, you can always pound it. The meat for rouladen has to be a long, flat strip without any tears, because you're filling it with a paste and you don't want it oozing out. The strip is a little bit too not wide enough for me, so I'm going to give it a slight pound. These are the spices that I'm using for my paste that I put in the rouladen. It's pepper, sweet Hungarian paprika, little bit of curry, onion flakes, onion powder, mustard powder, and granulated garlic powder. Moist ingredients for the paste is tomato paste, spicy mustard, as spicy as you can or as spicy as you like, but no sweet mustard, not French is sweet, Dijon mustard, and some salt. We're adding tomato paste. This is not an exact science. All we need is to have a relatively thick cover for spreading it on the rouladen. Next one is the mustard. Quite a bit of it. Give it a quick mix. You want it all mixed together. Tomato paste has salt in it. If you're on a low salt diet, don't add any more. Next is a largish pinch of salt. Then we begin with the other ingredients. The sweet Hungarian paprika, as much or as little as you want. You could probably use a spicy paprika too, if you wanted to. I like the Hungarian for the color and the flavor, and it has no heat. A little bit of curry, not too much. Now we come with the onion flakes, a lot. Next one is onion powder. If you use fresh onion, you don't need the flakes or the powder. Mustard powder. Since mustard is already in there, I just like a little bit more heat, so we're just doing a little bit. And lastly is the granulated garlic, and I like a lot of garlic. No vampires in my house. And I forgot the pepper, so that goes in there too. Not too much. My husband isn't a fan of heat. This all gets combined. If it's a little bit too dry, then some water can be added. Add a little bit of water. You can always add more. You don't want it too runny. You want a paste that is spreadable. The consistency that I want. Brownie batter? A bit like brownie batter. The consistency. It's not runny. It's not, you don't get it off the spoon. Always spreading the paste onto the rouladen. If the meat is dry, which this one is, then it spreads easier. If the meat is wet, use a piece of paper towel, dry it off, otherwise your paste is gonna slide. You don't want sliding paste, you want it evenly covered. Fairly thick coating, because once the rouladen are rolled, some will squeeze out into the sauce. This rouladen was pretty dry. This rouladen is still wet. I blotted dry so that my paste will stick and not slide around. The paste is now spread on the rouladen. Now it's the next step. It's putting on the bacon. If you look at the rouladen piece, there is a wider side and there's a narrow one. You want to start on the narrow one and roll towards the wider side, because this way all the filling stays in. If you look at the rouladen, it's not the same thickness. It's thinner on one end, thicker on the other end. We want the thin end inside and the thick end out. So I'm spreading my bacon from the thin end. I use between 1.5 and 2 slices of bacon. This is 1 slice of bacon cut into 4 pieces because the rouladen meat here is so narrow. So there's 1, there's 1.5. I leave a little bit free because the bacon will slide forward once it's rolled. Shove it up a little bit. Okay, we're rolling it thin end towards the thick end that has nothing, no bacon. And you can see if you watch that the bacon slides forward while it's rolled. That's why we leave the end free, so that there is no bacon, otherwise it won't stick to itself. And we're using 2 toothpicks to secure it, because otherwise during frying it will come apart. And rouladen shrink, so this anchors them. By the rouladen, I'm adding quite a bit of margarine to the pot. You could use butter, you could use ghee, you could use the rendered pork fat that they traditionally use in Germany. You could use a flavorless cooking oil. You can see it bubbling. In go the rouladen. Don't crowd them. Browning my rouladen. It's going to be uncovered on high. And I can't tell you how fast. When it's brown, you check it. Is it brown enough? No, it's not. It's gray. It's not brown. Needs longer. When it's brown, give it a quarter turn. Brown, quarter turn, until all sides are brown. The rouladen are browning. This is the first side. And you see that it's getting brown, which means the pores of the meat are sealed, letting the juices in. Give it a quarter turn. All the others, quarter turn. If you turn them all in the same direction, you remember which side you have already done. Makes it easier, you don't want it. I'm now deglazing my cooking pot with red wine. You don't have to use red wine if you don't drink, just water. So that all the brown bits become looser and come off the bottom. The brown bits are flavored. Now we're adding water, enough to cover the rouladen by about 1/2 inch. Depends on the size of your pot. This right now here is 4 cups and it is not enough. I'm adding more water. So, okay, it's not 100% covered. Good enough. Now I'm turning the heat back up to high because I want it bubbling so that the water evaporates and the fluids get thicker because I'm making a sauce out of the fluids. Rouladen are thin meat. They don't take forever to cook, 1/2 hour, 40 minutes. Once in a while you want to turn them over so that each side gets into the water, into the fluid. We're cooking the rouladen in an uncovered pot to reduce the liquid, but you will also see that they shrink. If you have a piece of meat, sometimes it shrinks by about a third of its size. So if you have a large rouladen, expect it to be a heck of a lot smaller by the time you're done. Look at the rouladen. It's boiling extremely heavily and the liquid has reduced so that only half the rouladen are now in the liquid. You want to turn it down to medium or lower. Fluid levels, the rouladen are now done. Are they done? You pick at your rouladen. And this one not quite, but your fluid level is low enough. So you have an extra 15 minutes. Add some more water and cook them for a bit longer. This time on medium low. You want it boiling turn your rouladen, the part that isn't in the fluid. The rouladen are done. Now it's ready for the final step, tasting and making a slurry to cornstarch, water slurry to thicken the sauce. To make the sauce, you take the rouladen out temporarily. We're making a cornstarch slurry, which is simple. Cornstarch and cold water. Water has to be cold, otherwise hot water will clump the cornstarch. Maybe 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. You can always not put it all in. This is half a cup. I used about half of it, quarter cup. And as you can see, you stir it until there are no lumps. Cornstarch, to make the slurry, the water has to be cold, otherwise you end up with lumps. But to get it to activate and thicken the sauce, it has to be hot, it has to be boiling. You can see that the sauce is getting thicker. You don't want a paste, you just want a sauce that isn't total watery. How thick you want it, it's entirely up to you. It's ready. It's not runny anymore, it's not thick. And if you leave the sauce sitting overnight, it will get even thicker. I come from, they call it sämisch, which means a thicker sauce that is clear and not runny anymore. So if you look at it, I don't know if you can see it, but it has some resistance to the spoon. It's kind of like syrup. Now that the rouladen are cooked, the toothpicks can be removed. They're not going to unroll, they're done. And then the rouladen will go back into the sauce until you're ready to serve, to keep them warm. You don't want the meat to get tough. And until you're ready to serve, the rouladen go back into the sauce. Okay, we add sauce, we add it over the dumpling. And there you go. The way to eat a dumpling, you don't cut it with a knife, you break it apart with a fork. A knife leaves too clean a cut. What you want is these nooks and crannies because they soak up the sauce. And you can cut them into as many pieces as you like. The procedure is always the same. Open so that you can see how the roll looks on the inside.